All right, my friends, are you there with me? Yes. All right, you have your Bibles on you? It seems like we're a little bit of a leftist today. We got more on the left than the right. But remember when I say that, leftism or rightism is all's perspective. If you're on this side, it looks like that. If you're on that side, it looks like this. You know, in the end, we're all people. I know. It takes away power from the politicians when you say that, but in the end, we're all people. Today's going to be a little different. I usually go directly from the Word of God, but I'd like you to turn and be ready. Luke chapter 15. Luke chapter 15. But now, as we move forward, I've got a story for you. For there are about 3 or 4, sometimes you can say. Let's put this up on the screen here. This our way of happiness. We all want to be happy in our lives. We all search for happiness in our lives. But the more we search for it, the more it slips through our fingers. And so we say, if only then I will find happiness. There was a man. He had 2 guys, 2 sons, but you could say daughter as well. 2 children. And this man owned a business. And one day, the younger of the 2 said, "Dad, it's time for me to go. I'm going to find happiness." I know in the text it doesn't say that, but you know how we are as humans. He said, "Dad, if you give me 50% of the business that you always said I'll own, then I'm taking it now and I'm going away. I'm tired of being at home." Now, in the agrarian society of which the Bible was written, it was like he's working on harvesting, perhaps. No son or daughter wants to do harvesting all the time. But the elder son was more responsible, it seems. Maybe not. I don't know. But the younger son said, I don't want to be in that world, Dad. I love you, Dad, but I got to go find my way because I'm going to be happier out there. And in fact, in the book of Luke, if you take a look, you'll find this. Verse 13 of chapter 15 in Luke. Not long after that, the younger son got together all that he had, and he set off for a distant country. I know your text here has a very short way of saying it, but he headed off into the great beyond. You see that happier future? You see that road ahead? If only I leave. And we've got these pictures here were painted just after the Reformation and into the Renaissance. You could tell by the designs, right? He heads off and he says, I'm going to leave home. And Dad is there. You see Mom crying. I'm going to find happiness. I'm going to find joy. Have you ever seen the movie Wizard of Oz? It's an old film. A lot of young people maybe know about it, but maybe have never really seen it because it's really boring. No, it's not. Oh, good. I'm glad. But it's one of those things. You know how the older films go slower? And today everything's quick. Of course, unfortunately, along with the quickness, a lot of times it becomes kind of like loose with concepts. And things change. But you know, the old deal, and there was Dorothy, you know, there was this tornado, which, by the way, I'm so glad that these Pathfinders were able to come back. I heard a tornado kind of split in half over there at Gillette, and they were able to get going. And you're here, Jeff. I'm glad. He was telling me, man, it was amazing. It was grueling over there. But anyway, it's middle of the United States. Sometimes you get that in the summertime, especially above Colorado. And but she was swept into this new story, which was the world of ideas. The yellow brick road is a symbolism of joy for the future. Look at that yellow brick road. I can even remember some of the songs. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. And you go, as in today's culture, it's kind of like, this is weird. But actually, if they saw what we watch today, they'd say, this is weird. But anyway, that's welcome to culture, how it changes. So you have the yellow brick road they head on, which is that golden road to the happy world. You see that, look at that beautiful green emerald city behind. But they found out something when they got to the Emerald City. It wasn't as happy as they might have imagined. Well, the son in the story of Jesus, he goes there and he has parties. And again, we have a Rembrandt here. You know, these post-Reformation look of these pictures. And this is in the world where people could not read as prevalently. Pictures were drawn. And you could tell stories from the Bible with pictures. Just like we do today. A lot of people don't read the Word of God, do they? So sometimes there's things like The Chosen on TV, where you have people wanting to make the Bible come to life. So in the same way, they were doing that just after the Middle Ages, into the Renaissance. We see this guy partying away in this land far, far away. This land that's supposed to bring joy and happiness. Now I have here a picture of a modern faraway land, right? Maybe not so far away because you know California we got LA right here. You know in LA there's a lot of people that come from around to come to LA. To come to Hollywood or thereabouts. With the hopes and the dreams of making it. I'll take what money I've got and do something with it. I don't know if you remember, there was a film just a few years ago called Hollywood. What was it? Oh man, now my brain. La La Land, which is L.A. Land. La La Land, which is definitely La La Land. And it ends actually with it saying made in Hollywood when you find out the guy and the girl didn't stick together because they weren't willing to make their relationship work through all of the difficulties. And it says, welcome to Hollywood. Did you notice that at the end? Produced in Hollywood. That's exactly. And that's actually somewhat, there was blowback on the film on that because people could read between the lines. This son went to the faraway place. The yellow brick road at the end, he wished to find something better. And when he started to discover it's not better, he did something we all do. There's a character in comic books. Joker. Put on a what? Have you been in that in your life? You're not happy, and you fake it. Because that's what you're supposed to do. All of us have been there. Some of us are there. In our lives, we deal with stuff. Are you a young person that's there? Sometimes we make decisions that are life-altering decisions. And then we have to live with that decision. So yes, I love this food. You know those times, times in our lives. I remember, I'm not going to say names. I remember once I ate somewhere, and it was not nearby, okay, everyone. I ate when I was younger at someone's place, and as a kid, I was taught by my family, in a mission family, you eat what's set before you, and you don't complain. You eat it and enjoy it. Afterwards, it doesn't matter. We can figure something out, but we're not going to offend somebody because they will be hurt, and so you're eating. I remember in Bangkok, by the way, there was a family I was invited, and it felt like it was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in this one of these things. Boy, there was everything on that table. And I ate. And my body rebelled later. My friends, the happy face is even harder to put on when you know in your life what you're doing now disagrees with how you have been trained. In fact, keep your finger there. I'd like you to move into the book of Proverbs, in the middle of your Bible. Proverbs chapter 22. You who have known this one, and I know the NIV says it differently, because the NIV says in Proverbs 22, verse 6, start your children off in the way they should go. But you know in the original text it didn't say that. We're used to train up a child. Doesn't even say that. Do you know what it says in the Hebrew? Palatize. You know what the word palatize means? You know the palate, the tongue? Teach a child the tastes. When they're young, and when they're old, they're going to go back. Who here grew up with rice? Chicken and rice, that's good. There you go. No comment. All right, but those with rice, now you go to a country where there's not much rice. Are you hungry a lot? Trying to say, where's the taste? When I moved to Bangkok, Thailand, I love cinnamon rolls. And I went to Bangkok, and there were no cinnamon rolls there. Everything was rice. In fact, desserts were made out of, there's some yams. I tasted a dessert, I said, man, that doesn't, because I hadn't grown up with that. So I'm like, whoa, that's a different, I ate a mooncake. And I said, it's not sweet. I thought it was like a cookie. It looked so wonderful. And I ate the mooncake, and it's definitely not, right? It's not sweet. It's a different taste bud. But you know what? The one who loves the mooncake, they come to America, and they taste something here, and they're like, oh, what's that? Cinnamon roll. That's too heavy. What is that? I eat a little bit of it, and I can't walk anymore. This is how train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. But here's the thing. I don't know if you've seen Inside Out 2. Inside Out 2 has a character called Anxiety. And it was really powerful because anxiety is what comes to you when your core value that you grew up with is ignored and you put in a new core value that disagrees. And that's anxiety comes. It's a lockup that happens to us. I know I'm supposed to do this, but everyone tells me I shouldn't, and then we wonder why we have anxiety. It's because we are disagreeing with ourselves, who we are, from what we learned, from the way we should be. Anxiety locks us up. Let me read now. I'm going to move backward again to the text, Matthew 15. So he went off to the distant country, and there he squandered his what? I'm sorry, it's Luke 15, verse 13. Not long after that, the younger son got everything together. He had set off to the distant country, and there he squandered his what? His wealth. he bought a whole bunch of stuff with the money and hadn't figured out how to balance his checkbook. His friends hung out with him. Because he wasn't really happy, he then fakes it and continues to act happy and spend more. Have you ever done that? Have you ever spent money when you don't feel good? Yeah. Have you ever eaten when you don't feel good about yourself? We start doing this. We keep shoving food in the mouth because it'll make us happy, but it doesn't work. So we want to be happy and we try other things, money, sex, power, whatever makes us feel good. It never works. It builds up anxiety. So we're in the loop. That's that constant anxiety loop that we get stuck in because our core values don't match what God needs us in our lives to have. We play like we're happy. Why so serious? The Heath Ledger version of Joker is very powerful because he takes that even further to task. The whole concept of how humor can be so destructive. Now, children don't fake it. How do you like this? Keep calm, fake a smile. You ever been to Disneyland? Or you've seen people at Disneyland? It's the happiest place on earth, right? Well, let's take a look. Here's even in the happiest place on earth. Look at that. Yeah, that's me. That's me right there. Especially after they desecrated Star Wars. There I am. There I am, right there. I'm sitting there heading into the new Star Wars section, and I'm just not happy. You know, my friends, I have to tell you that joy does not come from Disneyland. It doesn't come from money. It doesn't come from sex or power. Joy comes from somewhere else. And this young man could be a young woman. Maybe you yourself are in this position at this moment in your life. And you feel like you're that guy right there. Look at that. Poor, what's the character's name? Is that Goofy? I think I'd cry too. Sorry, Disney. Yeah. He says to himself, verse 17. Actually, let me move backward. Verse 14, after he had spent everything, there was a severe what? Famine. You know, we all have famines. You know what famines are caused by? Weather, transportation problems. We are famine-less in this country because we have trucks that move things. When there's a big disaster over here, we can move trucks of stuff over there. But then economics hits and inflation. Have you ever felt that? And when inflation hits, there's less food on the table. Well, at some point it might be worse when your dollar doesn't buy anything. He spent everything. There was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. Verse 13. Oh, no. Yeah, 15, sorry. So he went and hired him out to a citizen of that country who sent him to the fields to feed the pigs. And as he was feeding the pigs, now what would that be today? Who here's worked as a janitor before? You know what? All through high school, I was janitor of a church, and I cleaned theaters in the middle of the night when I wasn't going to school in New York and New Jersey of the 80s. That was Not fun, but I kind of liked it because I got paid good. But it was from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. Cleaning. Everything. And all you know, you may have heard of the Rocky Horror Show. You know how they throw stuff at the screen? I don't know if you remember that back in the 80s. Literally, they'll throw hot dogs at the screen or whatever. This is New York we're talking about, in New Jersey. So maybe not L.A. But I had to clean those up. And it was fun. Sometimes when you're hungry, you look and you see the hot dog. That's not a Vegelink. He's feeding the pigs. And he looks at the corn. The corn that no one wants to eat. The gasohol corn, right? The extra corn that you're feeding to the pigs. Or maybe, you know, if we're in the Middle East, there isn't corn per se. There's wheat or barley. But it's for the pigs. But you look at it and you go, maybe I'll chew on some of this. I'm hungry. I haven't gotten paid yet. And then he starts to get a light bulb in his head. He says these words. Verse 17. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food enough to spare? And here I am starving to death." Verse 18, "I will set out." See that road? That road there? "I will set out to my father's house. And I'm going to say to him, 'Dad, I've sinned against heaven and earth and people. I'm no longer considered to be called your child. Hire me.'" Did you hear that? Did you hear that? He thought his dad would say, "I'll hire you then. I'll make sure." Remember, he said before, my dad's servants get better food than this, right? So he says, maybe I can be a servant. That child was still looking for happiness. If I can just get food in my mouth and my stomach is not in pain, I'll at least have some happiness. I'll fall asleep not hungry. You know, everybody's happiness changes. In our lives, we have different kinds of happiness we're looking for. When you're young. When I was young, I wanted to be able to go to Universal. I wanted to go to Disneyland, you know. Then I got a little older and I said, well, I could see these movies. I'm looking forward. Oh, the next Star Wars movie's coming out. I'm ready to see it, right? Then I get a little older and I'm like, oh, Star Wars, whatever. I want to be able to date someone that is beautiful and they look at me and they weren't interested. Till Anna came along. No, there we go. All right. Actually, but that was much later. I wanted to be able to work in Hollywood, and then God called me. I started going into ministry, and then I went to Bangkok. All of us in our lives have different things we look for happiness. Then we start saying, maybe if I just have this much more money, I'll be happy. If I have enough money to fix my roof, well, how about this? If I have enough money to buy a really nice car. But what we don't realize is when we buy the real nice car, you got to pay for the insurance for that car. And now you're working harder to pay for the thing that you worked so hard to try to get. And so we're in the rat race. Anxiety, rat race. Of looking for happiness in all the wrong places when it was always right in front of us. He decides he's going to go home. And again, we've got this beautiful picture here from the time of the Renaissance. He comes back and he's emaciated. If you take a look at him, he hasn't been eating. He goes back And it says in the scriptures that his father saw him from a distance. And he ran out to see him. Now remember, you remember he was recording something in his head? Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer considered to be called your son. Hire me as a hand. Because we all do that, don't we? We all are legalists in our hearts. We say, God, I don't deserve it now. But here's the problem with that picture. Yes, we don't deserve it, but actually, what if it's because God made you and doesn't want you to live like that, but maybe he knows you're his kid and loves you so much and doesn't care what dumb decisions you made in the past. Maybe, just maybe, he runs from the front door of his house and throws, as the tape-recorded message is coming out, Father, I've sinned against, and the dad says, I'm not listening to you. He throws the thing around him. I'm no longer deserving to be called your son. He goes, okay, here's the ring. Back on the finger. Do you hear that? You have a family. Even though you searched for happiness your whole life. Couldn't find it. You tried. I don't know what kind of things this boy did. I don't know what kind of evil he did before the Lord. I don't know what kind of evil was done to him in this city. But it didn't matter because Dad says, you are my kid. You see that hair? I love that one. I know that's a hard one. Look at that, emaciated. Matted hair missing. This is in the Middle Ages to the Renaissance. When your life is falling apart, your hair, because you have to shave it because of the fleas, right? We're not used to that here. In India, when we did mission trip, we'd have to shave the kids' heads sometimes because so many creatures. And wash the hair and wash and shave it off and clean. This child comes back looking for happiness, not finding it, and says, Dad, I'm no longer worthy of being called your son. But the father loves his son. But then in comes the brother. Let me go backward a second. Here it is, and now you see, here comes the brother. Because if you'll notice in the text, there's another prodigal son. There's the other prodigal. And he says, he hears partying going on when the brother comes back, the younger, the brat comes back. He says, what's going on down there? He asks the servants, and they say, your brother came back. He's having a party. You know what the brother says? I have worked. He comes back to Dad. Here, let me read it. It's intense. Jesus knew human nature, didn't he? Verse 28, the brother came back angry. He refused to go into the party. So his father went out to him and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I have been slaving. Did you hear that? You mean you weren't working because we're all a part of the same team? You've been slaving for me? I've been slaving? Okay, let me stop there. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but who here feels like they've been slaving for God? Going to church all these years, working? I know sometimes we feel like that, don't we? We get upset. Why can't I on Friday night just do something fun? Why do I have to turn off the devices? Why do I have to, all of this stuff that comes up. There's things that might taste pretty good that they do out there that if only I could do, I could have a good time. Then that happiness is not realized. You know, maybe the first son wasn't the only one that was unhappy. Happiest place on earth. Let's take a look again. See these pictures? Maybe the brothers were just like each other. They just did different things. Maybe all of us are like that guy. Huh? He says, you haven't even given me a small goat. Remember that? You haven't even given me a goat. And I know in Western cultures, a goat. Well, believe you me, if you're from the Middle East, you know exactly what that means. You know, when there's a party, you have the lamb or the goat, man, and you have a party. Over in the Philippines, it's kind of the same way. You know, you have a cow on the stick, you know, the lechon. Well, sometimes it's other things, but you know how it goes? But he says, you haven't even given me a goat to party. Just like his brother, he hadn't found happiness either. So my call to you is something today. I'd like to ask you, which one of these brothers are you? If you're a girl, you can still be one of the brothers, right? That's okay. Which one are you? You know, Mary and Martha is oftentimes what this is connected with. Remember the story of Mary and Martha? Martha was always working all the time. And then she says, Jesus, dude, get my sister and have her work in the back with me. And Jesus says, wait a minute. She's chosen the right thing. And, you know, it's neither. You're doing what you're doing. She's doing what she's doing. Stop. Right? Maybe you were the one looking for happiness in all the wrong places in your life. Maybe you're still there. I don't know. But until you understand yourself, you can never understand how to be happy. Because in the end, God has not called you to be a slave to Him. He's called you to be His kid. And as you're His child, all of these things start to make sense. My friends, the way of happiness is to know who you are. There are the three things. Whenever I start Theater of the Universe, I say, there are the correct questions that we all ask. Who am I? Where did I come from? And therefore, where am I going? And all the stuff that happens in this world is meant to pull us away from those questions. If you are a child of God, who are you? You are God's child. Where did you come from? You got it. And you came through your family. And your lineage, your parents are not the kind of parents maybe you like sometimes. But that's okay, because God is their parent. Through them, He can call us to be, where are you going? I'm going to be home. And if you feel like you're the one that stayed all your life on the reservation, it doesn't exempt you from the unhappiness that sometimes comes from getting what you want. I'm calling you today to find happiness that is deeper and stronger than being called better than everyone else. A happiness that is bigger and stronger than getting everything you want. Money, sex, power, which goes away. Instead, I want you to find a happiness that is embedded in your God, who has called you and gives you deep joy and happiness that this world cannot imagine.